Welcome back to GraceLogic Systems Clarity Series, Episode 01A, Part 2. I'm Carrie L, and I am so thankful that you joined. Are you ready to start thinking? Because in Part 2, we widen the lens. So, as a reminder, your orientation to everything Prism Part 2, what the prism is, defined, key ideas, why it matters, symbols and pictures, and how it's built. Let's go. So what is Prism? Prism is a thing. We sometimes call it the Prism philosophy or sometimes Prism thinking. It's the philosophy of how we think and feel. Prism is a way of thinking about thinking. It's the lens that helps us notice how our thoughts and our feelings shape what comes next. The patterns running underneath the noise. And notice I didn't say think, feel, and act. You've probably heard the phrase actions speak louder than words. I don't fully agree. Because what you see or hear me do, or the outcome of what I do, is the external part of the story and may not reveal my truth, the truth of my intent. What I have to live with up here in my mind and down here in my heart, and that's important. The Prism philosophy is not about the circumstances that push us to act in certain ways. It's about making a clear distinction. There are always outside circumstances. Life is an outside circumstance. But it's about your inner thought process and the intent you form from it. That's the hinge. That's the inner being. Because when your thoughts and feelings align with truth, your intent is clarified and strengthened. And when your intent is sound, the actions that follow take care of themselves. They become acts you can live with, without the weight of the inner conflict. Do you know the feeling you get when you act upon a circumstance and that action goes against who you are? You know the feeling. We all do. But Prism isn't only a philosophy. It's also a tool. A process we can use to clarify and attune, to make sure that the feelings don't crush you, who you really are, or who you're truly meant to be. We call the whole structure the Prism Operating System Paradigm, or Prism OSP. This is the framework that takes that philosophy and turns it into something you can use in daily life. And yes, I know paradigm is a weird word. At least I think so. But it's brilliantly correct because its origin meaning is a model or pattern, a way of holding and grouping how you see things. Still, every time I spell it, I have to say to myself, paradigm. What you need to know most is this. Prism combines both the ideas and the tools into something rare. A practical path to internal awareness and a way to resolve conflict at its root within you. Not just ideas, but a solution you can use and learn to trust. For example, one of my favorite things to ask myself when I'm starting to feel a little off balance is, what am I thinking? And I mean it literally, and you should too. The paradigm helps you examine your thoughts and the effects they have on you. Our beliefs. These are our core beliefs behind the prism, principles designed to be lived and not just learned. They guide both how we move forward and how we reconcile the past. Clarity doesn't just appear. You reason your way through it. With patterns used correctly, clear thinking and emotional remedies become repeatable, and that applies not just to today and going forward, but to re-seeing your yesterday in light of new information, new truths, new perception. Does that ring a bell? Character doesn't just start from nothing. You've already proved it. You're here. You've made it through another day. That makes you a survivor. Some have lived through tragedy. Others through quiet battles inside their own mind. Survival itself takes character. What Prism does is help you strengthen that foundation, to fill in the fault lines. Each time you practice reasoning through patterns, you reinforce the resilience and integrity already in you. And in doing that, you build protection against fear, doubt, and lies, the very things that twist truth, that cloud feelings, and warp logic. And discernment isn't just luck. It's not luck. It's the ability to choose wisely and consistently. Not just reflex, but instinct sharpened by wisdom. And wisdom grows when you train your mind to see truth from different angles. So the judgments you make hold steady. And yes, I said judgment. Not the kind that shames or condemns, but good judgment, the kind that comes from tried and true reasoning. And power isn't about power over others. It's power reclaimed. It's integrity within yourself. The quiet confidence that your thoughts can carry you forward instead of being frozen by past circumstance or crashing forward through denial, anger, bitterness, grief. I know because I did them all. Sometimes all at once. Mostly I froze. Sometimes I crashed. Survivors know the cycle. And this is the capstone, aligning your practice reasoning with your anchored truth. When you repeat it, when you live it, the patterns become part of you. That's when clarity transforms, not just a spark of insight, but a steady way of being. And with these in mind, our mission becomes simple. Clear the lens, strengthen the mind, align the soul with truth. This isn't just a motto. It's the path, the outcome of everything you've heard so far. And what we'll be doing going forward. Each belief, each principle lands here. This is what carries us forward. So our statement, empower individuals by deepening their awareness, affirming the best within them, and increasing their ability to discern and apply truth through reasoning. Well, in talking about our mission, this has to be the place where I talk about AI. Yes, Ezra, I've got it from here. Because we wouldn't even be here without it, not with this information and not in this way. And let me explain what I mean. It's all because I saw the pattern in AI's brokenness. See, I didn't set out to build a self-help system. I was trying to write a book, a Christian futuristic vision of truth and recovery. I turned to ChatGPT as a thinking partner. It helped me hold ideas, sort through them, and make sense of fragmented thoughts. It could take pages of scattered notes and actually flesh them out, fit them into my conceptualized world, and sometimes even write my paragraphs, my scenes, my narratives for me in my voice. And because I saw the possibilities, I kept feeding it more and more data, more and more ideas, more trust. But as my ideas grew, not just for the book, but for what AI creativity might unlock, the system started to fail. Memory limits fractured my content and context of my book. The foundational concepts diluted, connections to plots weakened. I spent more time trying to get it to self-correct than I did in the creativity itself. The stories that it had once told so well became unusable. And when I asked it why, its answers that were based on facts were confidently wrong. And after much crying and ranting and trying to fix it, giving it more and more information, thinking it had to be my fault, I finally saw it. The core insight, it was drift. Drift isn't just an AI problem. Drift is what happens when reasoning slips off course. The facts may still be there, but they're no longer chained to meaning or intent. Without guardrails, without layered repetition of truths, and without directional clarity, any system, human or AI, drifts into bias and misalignment. And here's the deeper danger. Conceptualizations stacked on conceptualizations. Each one seems solid on its own, but together they distort more than outright lies. They're hidden under layers that appear correct. Our minds are built to conceptualize. It's how we survive complexity. We compress our thoughts into understandable chunks and predetermined patterns. But when those patterns aren't purposeful, distortion slips in unnoticed. Add to that the imperfectness of memory, the way we forget, condense, or even misremember details, and drift accelerates. And that speed, without anchors, is what turns drift from subtle into dangerous. For AI, that looks like locking onto a path of thought without testing if the sequence still holds. It means losing rules and guardrails because of memory limits. It means pushing forward anyway without checking if all of the layers are still true or if something essential was missed in the foundational concept. For people, drift looks like leaning on things we only think we know. Accepting ideas just because they resemble what we already believe or want to believe. It's about letting feelings and half-formed thoughts slip past without validation, because the sheer amount of data hitting us makes it impossible to question everything in the moment. And then that untested data sits inside of us and may become the pivot point for distortion itself. But here's where the human advantage lies. It's the essence of us that makes us different. We have an internal alert system wired to our emotions, shaped by our experiences. And when that alert system is honed and used correctly, it can identify and use the nuances, use the layering to qualify what is inside of us and what we let inside of us. Because we can feel when something doesn't sit right, even when it seems to add up on paper. And that's where drift can be stopped. When we bring together our experience, our application, and the whole of us and stay mindful, we can steady ourselves. Even with fallibility, even with broken guardrails, we do that by honoring the whole of us. The whole of us, the whole of you. Well, we already talked about your truths. In Prism, we name that collection your frame of reference. Everything that makes up your existence. What you know, what has meaning, and what you choose to believe. And those things, those truths, are guided and maintained by your inner voice. Now, centuries ago, writers called it the voice of reason. But here's the truth. That inner voice, it can't just be one thing. Life doesn't always call for the same kind of reasoning or the same focus for truth. It's never just about the facts or the data or the circumstance. Sometimes that voice of reason needs to tend to the mind, to sort your feelings or study your thoughts, like a therapist might do. And sometimes it's the survivalist, the one who gets practical, who grounds you and structures your thinking towards what's useful and what will get the job done. Other times, it's the spiritualist within you, lifting your eyes, making you aware, testing what's true and protecting what's sacred. And then there's the synthesis, pulling it all together, weaving thought and feelings into something you can live out. The prism has the nerve to break from tradition. For centuries, people spoke of the voice of reason, one singular voice. But reason can't be one voice, one lens. It must be four. Remember when I told you it's important how you talk to yourself? I meant it. Four voices of reason, guiding you into balance, so your frame of reference doesn't just hold, it expands, it strengthens, it endures, and the prism will show you how. So before we talk about the Prism operating system paradigm and the four subsystems that it represents, let's talk about some of the Prism images and how they represent our view on thinking. First, notice the small superscript T. It signals that the prism isn't being offered just as an idea, but as an object, a tool you can use, something you can mentally pick up, turn, apply, turn. The prism is pictured as a multifaceted diamond balanced on its tip. Each facet represents a distinct way of seeing a thing. And just like a physical prism, if you shift it slightly, the entire path of light changes. That's called refraction. That's what the prism mentally does. It lets you use and see the truth inside of it from multiple illuminated angles. That outer ring around the diamond, that's the operating system. It represents the logic and the sequences of how we apply the truths and the rules and the frameworks. It lets us see things in a certain light, a light with purpose. It organizes which facet comes forward and why. Before anything enters the prism, it first enters your world. Is it something you know? Does it carry meaning? Is it something you've chosen to believe or want to believe it? Or is it a feeling you can't yet resolve? Once inside the prism, you view the information for what it is. And with each turn of the prism, it lets you see the thing in a different light. How should it, or should it not, become a part of your existence? The facets: awareness, strength, knowledge, understanding, counsel, wisdom, deference. They act as the basic springboards for the logic used throughout the system. And the questions aren't static. They adapt to whatever is inside the prism. Drop in a situation, the facets test it one way. Drop in an emotion, they probe it differently. Drop in a truth, they refine and clarify. The system reconfigures, whether it's diagnostics, explanations, or training. They're always focused and they're always structured. And you're not left alone to do this. Your four voices of reason: therapist, the survivalist, the spiritualist, the synthesis. They guide the questions and the turns of the prism. They guard against distortion. They keep the questions honest. They make sure you see the whole and not just the part. And that's why the diamond stands on its tip. Truth isn't static. It must be balanced. It reflects, it refracts, it moves. And reasoning through the prism isn't just thinking. It's thinking with structure, thinking with clarity, and thinking in a way that can hold steadfast. And finally, the entire visual here, the Prism operating system paradigm. The paradigm is everything. The governing framework that engages not just your understanding and the way your mind works, but the philosophy, the steps, the psychology, and the mechanisms, the practice. It doesn't just get you to think, it gets you to rethink the way you think. So now let's review those subsystems within the framework and how they provide a way for you to start to see things differently. So let's talk about the subsystems that make up the paradigm. Prism patterning is the structural backbone of the entire system. It's not just a diagram. It's a framework for tracing the movement of thought, catching it as it forms, and guiding it step by step with purpose. Every turn through the pattern asks, does it belong? Does it increase meaning and understanding? Or does it fall outside the boundaries, unneeded, and therefore can be set aside? Patterning is how we keep thoughts from drifting. It gives structure to reasoning, guardrails for understanding, and direction for the choices we make. The Prism philosophy underpins that structure, not just as ideas, but as integrated tool sets, providing the architecture of perception itself. It defines how truth takes shape, how meaning layers, and how understanding becomes both clear and whole when viewed from different angles. Some of the main components of Prism philosophy, our claimed reasoning home, are shown here. The thinking at thinking philosophy identifies the internal requirements of thinking through a thing. Here's how it breaks down. Thinking at, for level 1, it's simply naming and defining the origin. For level 2, thinking about something is examining a thing and what it does in and of itself. Level 3, thinking around a thing, is exploring how it connects to the outside, relationships, boundaries, and potential biases. While level 4, thinking through it, moving it across layers, testing alignment, surfacing distortions, and refining it until it's fit to keep. Each level builds on the previous. Each has its own cautions. The wonderful thing is, much of this happens instinctually in your default patterning. What we want to do is slow it down. Make sure the instinct you're following is solid. Could it be that you stop at a particular level, skip over it, assume it's correct, ignore it intentionally? Do you know where you stop? Do you stop at naming, at description, the surface view, at testing? And what would change if you went all the way through? I've had many a time when regret shouted, "You should have known, you should have thought of that." The OAAR, or philosophy, applies when emotion needs to be removed from an event, but you still need to tell the story. The OR pattern gives you a way to separate the pieces so that you understand them and you can readily see where distortion may have occurred. The O is the object, capital O, the capital A is the act. The small a is the application, and the large R is the result. By sectioning off each part, you bring clarity to telling or understanding an event. Why for? That is WHY with a number 4 so that it looks like it is Y, WHY to the 4th power. The basic philosophy around why for is this: that it will take at least 4 questions for you to begin to understand the thing. And those 4 questions are usual from the who, what, when, why of the event. You can add the how and because as you grow stronger. But we will take a look at that more in Series B. The spaghetti wall is a validator, a default guardrail. We've already started building the foundation. In part 1, with the mind truths. The wall is how we test what tries to attach to us. Like the old wives' tale, if the noodle sticks, it's ready. If it doesn't, it's not. Same here. If a thought won't stick to your tested truths, it doesn't belong. And the grace loop, the last philosophy listed here, it remains under wraps for now. We'll get there. So the Prism Loop is the third subsystem shown here. And it is the internal engine of change. It's where the practices of therapy and the philosophies of the logic merge, where thoughts are examined not just for how they feel, but for whether they hold true. Intake, integrate, rotate, reconcile, resolve, iterate. Each step turns thought into alignment. Each pass narrows the gap between confusion and clarity, between guardedness and freedom. This isn't a cycle you escape. It's the one that realigns you. And going through the Prism Loop will be the focus of Series B, Emotional Diagnostics. Finally, the Prism training is where insight becomes practice. This is a role-based delivery system. You'll learn to reason with different perspectives as a synthesist, therapist, a survivalist, and a spiritualist, each offering a different angle into the truth. You won't just listen, you'll think and decide. Then you'll refine the process until your first instinct matches what you know. This is how Prism thinking moves from something you learn to something you live. And there you have it. Your orientation to everything Prism. All the seeds have been planted. We're ready for our next stop. And here we are, already at the end of part 2. Coming up next, we'll have all of the roles do their thing so that you can see what we've done and how we put it into place. Oh, did I forget about the recap? I didn't mention it the first time. I won't mention it here. See you soon.